Hello, happy Tuesday, and holy shit. How is everybody doing? Jay, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, John?
Fantastic. I'm excited about what we got going on here tonight. Introduce our special guest here. We've got Blake from Bourbonr or Seelbachs. Blake, how are you?
Doing well. You know, I happy to be here. Made this joke backstage, but I'm definitely going to use it again. I feel underdressed. I want to go grab a sports coat and slick my hair back, but for the time being, I'm just going to, stay t-shirt and a hat for now. So
feel free to get as slick back as you need to, man. We're here to support you.
Now I know for the next time.
Yes, absolutely. We intentionally don't tell anybody ahead of time to make it as imposing as we can.
Hit the wardrobe.
The first one's free.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
Next time we'll let you stop at hair and makeup on the way through the green room.
Fair enough.
So let's check in here and see what everybody in the chat is drinking, what everybody's up to tonight. Hope everybody is doing well on this 1st of September. A little bit crazy that the fall is basically here.
Oh, fuck, it is fall, isn't it?
Yeah, well.
First day of Bourbon Heritage Month,
Technically summer still, right? Yeah,
I think until the 21st. But yeah, that's right. It is Bourbon Heritage Month, which is super cool.
Yeah, summer ended here like 2 weeks ago, so we're good to go.
Summer, we still got like 2 more months in Florida, so we're good.
Yeah, it's summer until
you
Christmas
got like
time,
second
right?
summer coming.
Yeah.
So I think we might have just a little bit of news to cover here. If Jay, you want to pick that up and just let everybody know on the upcoming stuff. There's not a ton of it, and then we kind of dig into some craft whiskey talk here with Blake.
Yeah, hell yeah. Actually, I think there's. Sorry, I was on vacation last week, but I'm back now, as you can see from the righteous sunburn that I'm
Oh yeah, I didn't welcome you back very well. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it's fine.
Hey, welcome back, buddy.
I technically watched you while on vacation. Was like,
you were in the chat harassing.
Oh, so this is what it's like. But yeah, I mean, yeah, our bourbon news is going fucking crazy. We got on Thursday night, we will be selecting the Knob Creek single barrel selection for our bourbon, which is pretty cool. That's one I've been super pumped about for a while. Next Thursday, we'll be picking both Smooth Ambler. Yeah, we are the mafia, I guess. We're picking both Smooth Ambler barrels, and then the week after that, I'm pleased to announce we'll also be picking an Elijah Craig, which I was kind of alluding to a couple of weeks ago, but that's dropped. The samples are here, so it's Elijah Craig time. But this fall, we should be pretty loaded with picks. We also have Penelope, which has been approved and is getting labeled, which will go through Seelbachs, which I'm super pumped about. And then new riff in November, so it's going to be a packed fall. It's going to be busy. So there should be a post going up in our bourbon probably tomorrow, since I'll have time to sleep tonight and get that up tomorrow. But yeah, busy week. But catch us on Thursday. We'll be drinking some Knob Creek. John, Zilla, which is one of the other mods, and myself. So it should be a good time.
Very good time. I'm really pumped about that. I haven't cracked into those yet, which has taken a pretty fair amount of restraint on my part.
I haven't either, which has been like I've been like, oh, like,
you gotta hide them in the back somewhere. That
I did.
Trick and forget about them for a few days.
I did. We had
like
a generator
tucked under something. Yeah, I'm like, all right, don't get to it.
We had a generator being installed today at the house, and I was like, should I like put a curtain over my entire bunker worth of liquor here? So I don't want to put myself on the map. Like, this guy's obviously a target here. Like, the minute there's like any type of a breakdown of the fabric of society, I know that they're coming knocking on the door like, hey man, I know you've got that liquor handed over.
Yeah.
It's like, funny too, like we've been house shopping and people like, I'm like, yeah, I need an extra room. And they're like, what for? And I'm like, we don't got to talk about it. They're like, for an office. And I'm like, no, that's that other room. Like, what could you need in that room? We don't got to talk about it. And they're like, well, what is it? I'm like, 400 bottles of whiskey. Like,
yeah.
Like, I just need storage. Okay, it's just storage, generic storage.
It's not as crazy as you think it's going to be, but it's somehow weirder than you think it's going to be.
Yeah, it's like, not as serial killer-y as you think it is, but it's definitely fucking weird.
Yeah, they look weird, and then they're like, well, let's move on. And they're like, all right, well, that's what I was trying to get to. But
yeah,
let's get on.
Hokey is getting into something that I was going to try to get into, and then I realized that I don't have it. And my nightmare scenario of, did those fucking guys actually get into that whiskey today? Of all the bottles that they could have taken, did they take the Driftless Glen that I wanted to drink tonight? But it turns out I just left it someplace else, I think.
It's a problem. You start tasting, you give people different samples, and all of a sudden you're like, where did that bottle go? I know I had it at one point, and it is now no longer here.
I have a habit, too, of whenever I show up someplace and I bring, I've got my handy little Bourbon Pursuit bottle tote bag. I load that thing up bring some Glencairns, and I always like leave a Glencairn and the bottle of the host's choice, like whichever one they like the most. Like, okay, well, here's a proper whiskey glass, and here's the bottle that you really like. And so I'm like, did I leave that bottle someplace? Like, I don't remember bringing it anywhere, but that doesn't mean I didn't. Someone could most certainly use that bottle as a baseball bat, or far worse things. Those driftless bottles are no joke.
Yeah, I think my biggest fear in life is dropping one of those on any part of me.
Oh my goodness, you would have to get your foot amputated if that fell on top of it.
Let's see.
So I am digging into the Bourbonr and Breaking Bourbon Seelbachs. No, yeah, it was through Seelbachs exclusive. Pinhook Rye. Man, that's. I wonder. Do you know how old that is off the top of your head?
Recent one. So they've done. Actually, I was drinking. Is it like super minty, peppery,
minty dill with a good like caramel background to it?
That's the second one. So that's the most recent one, and that would have been 4 years old. So 4-year MGP, and trying the samples that we got there, like you remember the green wax Willets whenever they were just really good, and they're probably a little bit older than 4 years old, but that's what some of these more recent Pinhook ones remind me. You know, maybe it's the wax, I don't know, bottle style, but
it's got a good style going, that's for sure.
That is what those reminded me of, and it's just like it's like a refreshing rye. It's kind of how I describe it, like not super on like the depth and everything, but just like a lot of great high notes, a lot of mint, a lot of spice.
Yeah, real bright.
You know, it backs up well with some sweetness, and yeah, I mean, shoot, MGP just makes a really good rye whiskey. You know, that 95.5 is hard to beat in most cases.
Absolutely.
Certainly.
So what are you sipping on there, Blake?
So I actually poured the Chattanooga whiskey pick that we did with myself, Tank,
nice.
Dad's Drinking Bourbon, Breaking Bourbon, and then the Chattanooga guys. And this was one where, you know, it's funny. Hey, y'all know the routine with you sit down and you kind of debate, well, I like this one, I like that one. And I'm thinking, okay, like I'll need to, we're going to try to keep this to 30 minutes and trying to monitor it. It was like everybody goes straight through and was like, it's number 2, we're done. I'm like, all right, well, we're 12 minutes in. So we've got
let's talk about the new make for just a minute.
Yeah. Like trying to play devil's advocate of like, I don't know, A is a pretty good sample. And everyone's like, shut up, Blake. We know you're lying.
I mean, I did really like A too. That was a fun memory.
Yeah,
because I think I spent like 40% of that live stream with like a pair of pliers off camera, like trying to open my B sample, and I
remember that.
Oh, like I need to get this open.
Yeah,
no, I mean those were fun.
In all truthfulness, I did really enjoy A, and a buddy of mine who I let try it, he's like, I'm telling you, A was a great pick. I think I liked it better. I'm like, I'm glad I'm not alone. I did put up a little bit of a fight, but I quickly got steamrolled on on everyone's like, nope, it's this one. But yeah, so that's what I'm drinking. Chattanooga's making some great stuff.
I need to get my
I thought
hands
John
on
from Dad's Drinking Bourbon was gonna like collapse over too, because he was like, this is the best. Like,
that was a fun stream to watch. I enjoyed the hell out of that.
So much fun.
You guys started that right in the late enough in the afternoon that I had to throw it onto my phone and listen as I drove home. And I was laughing out loud at some of the stuff going back and forth between you all with that.
That was a really fun one, and I don't know if it was just because it was right during the middle of like all the shutdown, or you know, right at kind of the early part where everyone's just really pent up and has nothing else to do.
Yeah.
So, like, I know I had a couple drinks before that, and I think we started at maybe 3:30 or something.
You did, yes.
Oh, I got to warm up. Here we go.
It was early, and I was like, I guess this is my life now. Like, I guess we're doing
this is real life. Let's dig in and do this.
Yeah.
And Jay, I think there was also another reason why you already had those pliers handy on your desk when you had to use them to open up that bottle, because I had sent you a pile of samples like just a few days before that you were trying to dig into. I think you might have been doing it on this show.
I think I was. Yeah. I mean, there was a stretch.
Great.
I think it was on 3 webcasts that week, and every sample bottle was like cemented shut. And I was like, Here I go again. It's
yeah.
It's like the opening music is rolling, and I'm like trying to like wrench it open.
He was like running off camera, like, I gotta get pliers, be right back. You see him like run down the hall and come back in. It was great.
Yeah, that was a rough one, but I just keep pliers here. It's like part of my. People are like my fiance's like, why do you have pliers? And we don't got to talk about that. Like,
don't have to talk about the pliers.
I don't know. You going fishing later? Which in those Chattanooga samples, they were tough though because they had like the metal caps, and I don't know what happened, but I had the same problem. Luckily, I was greedy and got into them before we actually started, so a bit. So I couldn't hold back, but yeah, it is funny how you get some of those, and it's like, did somebody super glue this? Are they playing a prank on me, or are we?
Yeah, there's a reason why they wanted to do this live, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now I open everything ahead of time, which is better anyways. But yeah, those were impossible.
So let's dig in here. We've kind of gone around here, talk about what we're drinking. I don't know, Jay. I don't know if you told us what you were drinking yet or not, but I'm going to assume it's something good.
I'm having some chat myself. So
here we go.
The one thing I just don't have yet. I got to get my paws on some of that.
Well, you should. I mean, I took a bunch on vacation, and I was amazed at how like 9 a.m. like, oh, maybe I'll have some chat. Like 2 p.m. like maybe I'll have some chat.
Just have a little bit more chat real quick.
Chat it up.
Yeah.
Let's get chatty, man. I like everything about that. There's plenty of puns wrapped up in it too, and I love that shit.
I was gonna say you just ready to rattle those off, aren't you?
I am. I've got a list.
You're ridiculous.
Yeah, at best. So, did you guys check out the recent Bourbon Pursuit episode with chat? They had a really interesting episode on there where they went through their whole backstory, and it was really, you always hear like the story about the distillery, and it's always written on the bottle, but like they couldn't fit this story on the bottle, man. They need like 18 bottles to get this thing done. It was great.
Yeah,
Kraken's awesome.
I didn't realize they had gone live on that one yet. I need to catch up on my Bourbon Pursuit, apparently.
Yeah, well, you're too busy on the BCR just hammering it up. You guys are
yeah, that's true. That is true. But no, like those are really good guys, and Tim is really good at telling their story, and then Grant is so knowledgeable, and he doesn't come from kind of back in the production, behind the scenes all that often, but occasionally you get him to do something, and it's just so interesting because he's got, I'm sure he talked about it, but a beer background, and heavy into like the chemical engineering side of the whiskey, and like, okay, if we're not going to have 8 to 10 years of age on this product, how do we develop some of those flavors? What are those flavors? And if we're looking for more caramel, vanilla, all that, okay, maybe we can pull that from the grain instead of just from the oak and all that. So yeah, those guys are incredible.
Yeah, they took a real deep dive into the malt side of it and why they're using the mash that they're using and what each different malt that they employ is kind of doing for them. And it was pretty cool to get like the real nerd side of what they have going on, especially where I don't have any of their stuff. So for me, it's like I'm like a sponge. Like, okay, I can't taste it, so I need to learn everything I can about it.
Yeah, and
somehow like through osmosis pull it into my brain so I can pretend.
We may be able to fix that for you. I don't know. I may know a guy, so we'll see what we can what we can round up on the Chattanooga whiskey side.
There is a guy.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's incredible how much flavor they can pull from something that's so young. Like, it's bonkers to me just how much flavor. Everything they've done. Like even the 91, I was like, holy fuck. This is a much more flavorful than I would have ever expected for the ABV.
Yeah.
And it's clear that whatever they're doing behind the curtain is working phenomenally.
And that's where I think we are with a lot of these whiskeys. And when craft got a bad rap and people said, oh, I hate it, this is terrible, whatever. We just learned that they were doing a bad job of making it. Not that like we couldn't have a very flavorful 3-4-year-old, 5-year-old whiskey. It needed a different process, and that's what I think we're seeing a lot of now. And it just adds to it the fact that a lot of these are getting older too. So not only did some of these distilleries figure out their process and their production, but now they're getting some age to them as well, and that's the most exciting thing. I mean, I can jump on my soapbox and preach the craft gospel all night, but you know, we all love the Knob Creeks and the, you know, Elijah Craig's and all these other barrel picks and everything. But at the end of the day, you know, it was getting produced. You know, these stills are massive. They're manufacturing plants for alcohol. It's not as, you know, of a like refined, or it's way more of a refined process than it is an art form. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think they both have their place. So, you know, I'll never stop drinking Four Roses and Booker and all these other ones. Like, that'll never happen. But at the same time, I love to mix up something a little different and to show people different whiskeys and kind of where different.
Yeah, being able to mix it up, try something new. I think so. One thing in my area is that like the whole locavore and like buying something from near you is really popular, and you want to try to do it. And I don't think in this region we have quite made the leap to pulling that off yet. You know, and I kind of wonder. Jay, let's see what you think on this. I kind of wonder how much the vocalization of the whiskey enthusiast world is impacting that. I mean, if you look back maybe even 3 or 4 years, craft whiskey very largely was, you know, a derisive term. Like, it's not something that you want to drink, not something you want to gift to one of your buddies who knows anything about whiskey. And it's something that you frequently will get from, you know, like a Secret Santa swap or like a relative who doesn't know you that well. And they're like, oh, I heard he likes whiskey.
He's into whiskey. I bet he's gonna
This is a local bottle from this place down the road. It's $55, and he must think it's really good because, you know, it's a fairly expensive bottle to buy for somebody. And it blows. So, you know, how are we kind of making that gap? Like, what's the bridge there between the whiskey enthusiast world and the craft world catching up?
I mean, so I'll be fair with you. Like 5 years ago, if it was a toss-up between craft whiskey and whiskey stones, I would have taken the whiskey stones.
Oh.
You guys know how much I fucking hate whiskey stones.
Ice cold teeth breakers, yes, of course.
Yes, like, because I mean, I've already had my front tooth knocked out once. Like, what's the second time?
Well,
like,
yeah, why not just risk it again?
Let's run it.
Yeah, but like, I mean, over 5 years, it's insane just how much progress craft in general has made. Like, at this point, you know, craft is, you know, before it was always a gamble because it was expensive and, you know, you had no idea how it was being made. But, you know, the progress in the whole industry over just 5 years has been obscene. And places like Chattanooga and Driftless Glen are releasing 3-year product that has so much more flavor than anything 5 years ago. You know, there's almost no craft. I mean, there's a couple places like people at Tuthill Town that are making Hudson. Like, yeah, we don't got to talk about that. But, you know, other than that, like, there's very little craft that isn't at least worth trying at least once. Like, even Silverback, which is brand new and stuff like that. Like, maybe it's not amazing, but they've covered so much ground in 5 years that I can't think of many other spirits that have just made such an insane progression, especially with deep historical roots. Like, people have been making whiskey for, you know, a couple 100 years, but in the last 5 years, craft whiskey has just gone insane, which I think is great to see. I mean, now I'll try. I mean, I've always tried anything once, but now, you know, if you're going to hand me some random craft from a place I've never heard of, I'll take that over whiskey stones. I bet it's at least probably okay. Or, you know, it's got some merit and you know, to look for it in 3 more years and see how it is again.
Yeah, you can find promise in there, even if it isn't immediately something that jumps out as being a quality product that you want to buy. There's usually something in there that you can find that says, okay, you know what? Maybe they're doing this part of the puzzle right. And I wonder if some of that has to do with the bar being higher now. You know,
I think it does. And like, I would have never heard of Spirit of French Lick 5 years ago. Like, never heard of them, you know, but now, you know, in that 5 year gap, not only have they started and their name to be recognized, like, their stuff's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Which is insane to me from just starting up a whiskey place. You know, usually you expect to need 50 years of experience to get that going, but that's not the case, which is awesome to see.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, just the whole knowledge gap was the really tough part at first where, you know, and I'll be honest, like, I think brewers still make, a majority of the time, brewers make some of the best master distillers at these craft distilleries because the whole fermentation process is very hard. You know, that's more of the finesse than just hitting temperatures on a still. But I think a lot of people have started to figure that out along the way of like, hey, how do we, we can't just go distill it to 165, put it in a barrel at 125 proof, and then put it in a smaller barrel, get the color we want, and throw it in a bottle for $100. Like, that model just does not work anymore. And but that was the popular belief early on. It's like people are going to buy it because the whole local for thing, and just go dominate your local market. You're done. But now it's like, no, like, why are we not catering to the connoisseurs and the guys who are taking this stuff seriously, who are really interested in what we're doing and how our process is different, how grains affect it, and that's where I think that last 5 years has been huge. To your point of Spirits of French Lick, the only thing I knew about French Lick, Indiana, was it was the hometown of Larry Bird, until I started talking to Alan Bishop, and I'm like, oh my word, like, when can I go to French Lick? This is incredible. Some of the stuff they're doing. So it's cool to see that.
Absolutely. There's a question that came up here in the chat. Is there a craft distillery that you'd like to have available on Seelbachs, Blake?
That's not currently available. Ooh, that's a long
list. Who's in your sights, put it that way? Like, I'm sure you've got a list of places that you're looking to get on there, and obviously want to offer the products that are good. So who's up on the list?
So there's a few. So I've been talking with Detroit distillers out of Detroit, obviously. They're one that are really interesting. They have some older 4 or 5-year-old products with some pretty interesting grains. They're a big one. And then, it's out of Arizona. They make Colkegan. I'm blanking. That Colkegan is it's like a smoked whiskey. It's incredible. I'd love to get them on. And then Iron Root, I think Texas kind of, at first it was like, I don't know. And then, Balcones had some really good hits. And then, we currently have like Treaty Oak and a couple others, but Iron Root makes some really good stuff. So there's kind of a long list of.
That's good.
I don't want to leave anyone off, but at the same time, keep it, and then, I still think like some of the California distilleries that were some of the originals, like Charbet, I'd love to have them on because they're so funky and different, and they're one of the first 3 craft distilleries in the country. We ended up getting some of the first one, which is, it's called, it's Jackson Key Winery, but it's called Jepson Brandy. And it was like, I think, what's the dad's name over there? Anyways, he worked at Jackson's Key and then started his own, and them and St. George all kind of like started, how's my phone now melting? All kind of started together. So something like that, there's ones that I think are kind of pushing the envelope forward, and I love what they're doing. Then there's just some like that historical aspect where they're just making great spirits for a long time. St. George would be another one of those. Clearwater or Clear Creek Distilling out of Oregon, but I could probably continue on. I'll leave it at that list for now.
These are all the future front page items here on Seelbachs.
Yeah. That's but it's interesting. It's a mix of while I was telling somebody today, we have an American, incredibly cool independent bottler for an American single malt. And they're like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, honestly, I'm probably the easiest sales pitch you've ever had, because if it's cool and interesting, I want to buy it. Like, let's do it. I've had it. It tastes incredible. Like, I don't know, how many cases can I buy? So it's like mixing that part of it with like, oh, we still have to think about things that like cash flow and those things on the back as well. So, we've grown at a decent pace, but at the same time, I wish we were 4 times as big with every cool distillery I've ever come across. But, that's the fun part of being small and agile and kind of getting in what we can.
Absolutely being the tip of the spear, so to speak.
Yep, exactly. Matt Layton said Finger Lakes. They're one of my favorites, and I will plug them because we do have a barrel pick coming from them on Friday. And it's
sweet.
If you've had their rye, so Pursuit did a barrel pick from them of their rye, and it was just like the craziest, funkiest, like blueberry lemon. 18.
Yep.
And so I basically asked Brian. I'm like, hey, look, just give me whatever you can close to that. So he sent me like 5 or 6 samples, and I got one, and I'm like, it's not exact, but there was a lot of that just really interesting, fruity and kind of funky notes to it, and it was really good. So
I can tell you from firsthand experience that Leighton is excited to hear about that. I think he and I both scooped up as many bottles of that episode 18 as we could.
So and I always run into this of like, you know, obviously whenever I send out emails and everything, I am trying to sell product, but like I'm also really excited about some of these products. So some of them, like, I need to tone down this email. Like I sound way too sales pitchy. And episode 18 was one of them. Like, honestly, best rye I've ever had, coolest thing you'll taste all year. I'm like, okay, let's bring it back. But it is true. Like,
you did that on New Year's too. Like I didn't buy it the first time around, and then you kicked out like a second email. Like, all right, guys, seriously, you have to buy this. And I was like, I was sitting there. It was like just before midnight. Yeah, it was probably on my 4th pour of whiskey. I was like, he said I gotta buy it, so okay, whatever. I'm taking a flyer on it. I'm buying this thing. It came in, and I went through the bottle so fast, like, holy shit, we need more of that. And then it sold out. Like,
yeah,
18 was great.
That was interesting because I think what happened on that was like a 2-step process. Like, we sold through some, and then by the time that those bottles arrived and people tried them and shared it with other people, it was just like, boom, it's gone.
Yeah.
Like,
gas on the fire, man. That went so fast. As soon as we started talking about that, it was, I think, one of the earliest virtual happy hours we did with the Bourbon Pursuit Discord group.
Oh, nice.
And there was, geez, I don't know, like maybe 4 or 5 of us. Like, we were going to open the bottle all at the same time. And I think it was like within 3 days it was sold out because there were whatever, like 30 of us all hanging out like, holy shit, this is like next level good. What the hell did they do to this? And like taking it from New York to Memphis and letting it age for an extra year, turn it into like fucking wizard piss. It was just so good.
Kinds of great. Well, I mean, it won our blind tasting that we did. And the funny thing was, what was that? That was a couple months ago with the round table. We did a blind tasting, and like I smelled it, and I'm like, Ryan, I know exactly what this is. And Kenny's going, I don't know. Did we pick this? I'm like, Kenny, how does that not jump out? Like, that is the most unique flavor profile of a whiskey I've had in a long time.
Yeah. Short of like a 7+ year Willet rye, there's not a whole lot that's going to jump out in like straight into your fucking brain like that. Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
So we're going to buy all of that on what day? Friday?
Friday.
Yeah, Friday sounds like a good day.
That's sold out. That's nice to know.
Do we need to like release the password early?
I think we need to do a whiskey net password early. Don't let Ryan and Kenny buy any.
It's funny though, like you talked about that second bounce, and it's really interesting to see like across like all sorts of spirits. Like, I mean, we see it even in like rum and stuff. Like, okay, you know, if there's 300 bottles, like, I don't know, 80 sell in 1 week, and then like 14 days go by, and then like, oh, that's weird, 200 bottles just sold. Everyone like tries it. It's like try this, and like throwing it at their friends and talking about it. It's the most interesting thing because like beyond like first day sellouts, it's like the second, you know, it's like when you throw that tennis ball and it bounces once and it goes nowhere, and the second bounce just like rips off across the street. It's really interesting to see like what that first
bounce is like, okay, that's cool, and then it just
all that
and people are like, oh, it's good, and then they're like, then they tell everyone, and they're like, well, we tried to tell you it was good, but you know, you should try it for yourself too, and then everyone buys it after that. But it's super interesting to see.
It is funny to see, like, you know, a lot, I won't call it like the hype train, but a lot of the, you know, excitement comes to some of these craft releases. I mean, I tell the story of the first the first time I picked a barrel at New Riff. I was in there, and it was Bourbon and Beyond. Drove up there by myself. Nobody else was there. And they laid out like 6 barrels, and I'm like, these are fantastic. Like, is it possible for me to get 2? Like, I don't want to overstep my boundaries. Well, you would have thought I was, you know, a king walking in asking for 2 barrels. And, you know, I was trying to sell them, and it probably took a month and a half to sell them out. Now, every New Riff barrel pick is like, you know, just gone. Like, see, like, everyone's on it, and it is funny to see how that happens. I'm sure that's how well it felt like 10 years ago. But
There's a comment up here about that. Let's see. Oh yeah, Chris Thomas said, The New Riff pick showed him how
Yep.
craft doesn't always mean crap. And I mean, he's dead right. I kind of thought the same thing, like coming into New Riff, not knowing anything about it. It's not distributed anywhere around here. I mean, it's in New Hampshire now, but it wasn't at the time. And I don't remember. I think somebody had sent me a sample. It might even have been one of your picks, Blake, actually. And I mean, it's just like I couldn't decide if it was like an Elijah Craig and like a beam product or a turkey product. Like there was like some amalgamation of everything I liked that all worked together in a whole different way. And it was sent to me blind originally, and I was like, what is this? And then I was like, I'm gonna need some more of these.
You're telling me this is 4 years old, and
So you're saying this is only $50?
Yeah.
And it's available?
It's super funny too, because like when I was resurrecting the Our Bourbon selection program, and like on year one, I was like, we're gonna do New Riff, and everyone was like, why would we do New Riff? And I'm like, why can't we just go to Beam? And I'm like, you can't just stroll up to Beam, right? Like, and we had one guy was like, there's 100,000 people, let's buy 10 barrels and we'll make our own bookers, and like, sit down, but like,
right.
And it was interesting to convince people and be like New Riff is good. Like, everyone hasn't had it yet, but like, we got to start someplace, and like, we should start with craft that's doing it right. And then everyone got their bottles and was like, oh, okay. Like, I get it now. Like,
yeah, makes sense.
New Riff has got it. And then they're like, all right, when we do another Riff, like, can we get more bottles? I'm like, we'll wait till next year. But like, we can't just go right back. Like, they have to sell to other people too. But yeah, it was interesting to see like people get over that like craft hump and be like, oh shit, like this is phenomenal. Like, I should have gotten a bottle, because we had a lot of people that like were like, I'm not going to buy that. And then everyone got their bottles and taste them. Like, are there any more? Can I buy it? I'm like, no, it's gone. Like, buy it was a month ago.
Yeah.
It's and now everyone's like, all right, like, give us New Riff. Like, come on. So it's even just a year, it's crazy to see how people are like, New Riff, and now they're like, all right, like give it to me, like, bring it on.
How do we get more? How do I get more bottles? And that's all the fun stuff. And that's the part that makes it exciting. And somebody asked a question about who's been around for 2 years or more. And there's quite a few. I was trying to find. We did a survey with ADI with, I think it was not the top, but like 200 of this craft distilleries, and it was, how long have you been around? How many barrels do you have aging? And the amount of people with barrels in the 5 to 6 year range was crazy. It's not like Finger Lakes released a 10-year-old malt. Some of them have been acquired and all that different stuff, but there's quite a few that I think people don't even realize. And there's some I'm blanking on the name, but a guy I was talking to about coming on and on Seelbachs, and he was like, yeah, I've got this like unnamed whiskey. I don't know, like it doesn't fit our current label. So we've got some barrels of it sitting there. I'm like, well, how old is it? He's like, yeah, it's 7 years old. I'm like, well, send me a sample. I'll try it. It was fantastic. And so I'm still trying to talk him out of selling me a barrel. But it's been a little longer road than expected, because then, he's got to file a new TTB and all this other stuff. But there's still some like crazy gems out there. And I think that's the exciting part with a lot of this is, it's like the dusty hunting of 10 years ago, where you'd go into all these old stores that maybe are off the beaten path or whatever. And it's like, now we can hunt for like dusty private barrels of what do these craft distilleries have to offer? Like, y'all got anything in the 6-year-old range? Okay, let me
Let's talk.
Yeah.
Or it's interesting too. Like, so I was up at Driftless when we were picking the Take and Seelbachs barrels. And I was like, so like, how many barrels do you guys have? And they're like 5,500. And I was like, excuse me, what? Like,
yeah, you're thinking they're going to say like 55.
Right. Yeah, and they're like, we have almost 6,000. We're putting up another warehouse. I'm like that number is significantly bigger than I was expecting. Like, yeah, well, and like it's about to hit 6 years, and then we're going gangbusters with it. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not surprised to hear that there's a lot of other places that have just huge amounts of stock ready to just smash into the market anytime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where you want to do as much as you can to support those brands and distilleries, because it's like, wow, why am I chasing pumpkin spice Weller whenever I like Buffalo Trace kind of gets the butt of a lot of those jokes, but we all love Buffalo Trace, so they can take it. But it's like, all right, do I really want to, if I'm going to spend time chasing something, why don't I find something that is actually pretty rare instead of something that is like, oh, this is very rare and exclusive. There's 100,000 bottles of it made.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like there's 45,000 bottles of George T. Stagg, but there's only 190 of this single barrel. Like,
yeah. That's
no brainer for me.
That is very true. Now, I will never pass up a George T. Stagg, but with that being said, yeah.
The Take Seelbachs Driftless is/was amazing.
That's it. So Peter,
that was good stuff.
Full year kind of so he's got a gin where they make it from. So it's, and he could probably jump in the comments, but it's a gin. It's 100 Mill Street gin, but it's from maple sap, or like essentially maple syrup, and it's just another one of those just like super crazy interesting products. Really good, but it's like, oh yeah, I've had Sapphire gin. It's like, well, have you ever had gin from a maple tree? And that's more of the same kind of products that I just really enjoy, and I've never been a gin drinker until.
Oh man, it's.
I got. I know. I haven't been asked to be a judge in the Grade J gin shootout.
Gin Invitational, man.
Yeah,
it's funny you mentioned that, because I had batch 1 of the 100 Mill Street last year, and batch 6 actually makes an appearance next. Shoot, nice. What day is it? Today's Tuesday. It might be Friday or Monday of this week. Now that I'm back from vacation, but man, that's some fun stuff, because like I can't think of another gin like it. Whether you like or hate it, if you want it unique, you'll never find a gin that's like, you'll never be like, oh, they're out of 100 Mill Street, just get this. It's exactly the same. Like,
that's there's not that side by side comparison. Exactly. But that's the fun part about it, is because you kind of think like, all right, it's gin, so what are we going to do? We're going to play with the botanicals a little bit. We're going to be juniper heavy. We'll do something crazy like add lemon peel or orange peel. And it's like, nope, here's what we're going to do. We're going to switch the distillate up. And, Chattanooga's done that a little bit. Wonderbird out of Mississippi has done it. They make it from a rice base, so it's essentially like making sake, and then they distill it. So like completely flipping gins on their head, and makes it interesting for sure.
And it's like, and I think like that's kind of one of the reasons like gin might be like the next craft. I don't think it'll be as big as craft whiskey, but it might get close. Like I was drinking one the other night from Falcon Spirits. Fareed made it, and he was like, yeah. This is a Solera that's like between 1 to 7 years old, but the barrels aren't toasted. They're like dried on a California hillside for 3 years, and then like we only do 100 bottles of this a year. And I'm like, oh my god! Like, the paragraph
7 years Solera barrel,
and I was like holy shit,
Damn.
And I get that American whiskey, like, you don't get quite that much freedom, but it's really cool to see people that are just mad sciencing all sorts of spirits. But
I think I had one that was in Jay. I think you sent it to David at Manifest Distilling. It was like a wine base maybe, or was finished on grapes or something, and it was just like super crazy. I want to say it was like an Australian gin or something.
Oh, that was the Four Pillars Shiraz, the Bloody Shiraz. Yeah, they take an Australian gin that's distilled from grapes, and then they macerate it with Bloody Shiraz grapes. Oh man, I mean, there's nothing like it. I was
drinking it. I'm like, what am I like? Am I drinking like Kool-Aid with an alcoholic Kool-Aid with like kind of peppery? It was just crazy how good it was.
I mean, and it's the worst part is that it's like $50, and I was like, I need 3 more of these. Like, and I was watching them, like, did I just pay $50 3 times for gin? And I'm like, oh, yes, I did. Like, and everything Four Pillars does is bonkers good, but like the Shiraz, I've had nothing like it. It's just crazy that there's that experimentation in the market, which I think is phenomenal to see.
So I'll pose a question back to y'all. So for me, it seems like, and I know Jay, you're a beer guy. John, I don't know if you were into beer as well, but like that was pushing that experimentation was always the name of the game, and
oh yeah,
to the point where it's just got way too crazy. But I feel like a little bit of that is floating into some of the spirits world. I know we don't have like marshmallow toasted gin on a habanero barrel,
Not yet.
strapped from an airplane and flown over the sea or something. It's nothing quite that crazy. But do you feel like that experimentation and kind of a little bit of quirkiness is kind of floating in a little bit?
I think that. So I like what craft beer did, and it went ballistic. And I think that it's kind of both a pro and con, right? But like spirits, there's more time to market. Like a beer, like you can produce and you're almost immediately available to the market. So you can do whatever you want. If it flops, you wasted 10 days and maybe a little bit of product,
Yeah.
I like that spirits, you can be sort of careful. You don't have to be super careful. Like we saw Tabasco Dickel. And we all know, we know how that went. But I think spirits are nice because like we're seeing a lot of that experimentation, but people have to think a little bit instead of being like, oh yeah, we'll do that. And if it sucks in 7 days, we'll be onto something different. Like,
yeah,
clearly you can get close with that with spirits, but maybe not all the way. But I mean, we're seeing what works. Like gin macerated on grapes is crazy. Like gin distilled from maple. Like Chattanooga is doing bizarre things with like brandy finishes. Like I'm all about that, and I think that's cool, and I think that it's going to work well for them with even just a little bit of testing. So I welcome seeing some of the better parts of the craft beer boom make its way into spirits. Like maybe these people thought about it a little bit and we're like, maybe we don't need pickle barrel aged spirits. We'll leave that to beer people for a while, but like
maybe we don't need
I did have that discussion. So Aaron Goldfarb, who wrote the book Hacking Whiskey, will do some really funky private barrels. And so we did like a gin finished rye. We did which none of these sound all that crazy now because barrel basically knocked out our entire catalog of interesting experiments. But we've got I think this one's going to be interesting. It's coming from Watershed out of Ohio. It's Nocino finished bourbon. But we were talking about like having a pickle maker, like sauerkraut maker, and essentially like a pickleback whiskey where you finish whiskey in. And I'm like, that just sounds way too out of bounds. Like maybe we'll go back to the drawing board. But I think it's interesting to see some of that, and maybe do it like a 375 bottle so people aren't having to drop 50, 60 bucks to try it once.
Or sell it as like a 200 milliliter along like a 750 bottle.
Yeah,
put
exactly.
it alongside something else. It's a small size, even if it does a little 100 mil.
Yeah, but and it's kind of cool. That's what I liked about Traverse City doing weird stuff. Like, hey, we'll do really weird stuff, and we'll give it to you in 200 milliliters. And if you hate it, it's 200 milliliters. If you love it, then you could buy 200 milliliters more. But
that's the downside. It's like, what if I want a full bottle's worth of? Well, we had that on the Nocino finish that we did with Watershed, and it I tasted the sample. I'm like, okay, bourbon's decent. Like we'll finish it, and they'd send me a sample every month. For the first few months, I'm like, whew, this is gonna be a hard sell. Like I'm just gonna have to find people that kind of like bourbon but love Nocino for some reason. And then it was like all of a sudden it turned the corner, and I'm like, are we sure we're pulling from the same barrel every month now? And man, it ended up being really fantastic. So it's interesting to see how there's a lot of testing that goes involved or is involved. It's not just, oh, we're going to put it in the barrel, let it finish for 6 months and pull it out. Like you could be way off, or you could have something amazing. But I think kind of somebody taking care, watching it, and they did an apple brandy finished as well, as the auditor pointed out in the comments. But I love that kind of experimentation.
Well, and I'm curious too, because I know Manifest is doing a honey something or another.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. It's cool to see places that are established, maybe not going like just full off the wagon, like let's make everything experimental. But it's nice to see places be like, all right, let's take a risk here. Like it probably won't work out, but if it does, that's great too. And even places like Starlight, which I thought were just horrendous, like for the first year I was like horrendous, second year horrendous, third year horrendous, fourth year what? Like,
Yeah. Hold on, what's going on?
And it's weird because we always think of like aging as like a linear thing, but it's weird. Like you got to 3 or 4 years and then you got really good, like out of nowhere. You know, it's kind of interesting. Maybe some places just need more time, but it's funny. Like the difference between like 3 and 4 year, I think it was like Starlight was just like night and day. And I
Like
bet it
now this is a drinkable product.
Mhm.
or even like beyond drinkable. Like this was bad, and then a year later, like whoa, this is good. Like what happened in this year? Maybe it was terroir, maybe it was the climate or something. But
That's,
Right.
I think you never know. I had a conversation with Sean Josephs over at Pinhook about he had sourced some barrels, and he's like, man, I think he said they bought them at 3 or 4 years old, and he's like, they were just like, I'm not gonna lie, they were bad. And there was something about they hit the 9 or 10 year mark, and he's like, it was fantastic. And he sent me a sample. I'm like, can I buy these? These
Yeah,
are
is this for sale?
really good, but are you just like tempting me or like trying to? But you know, so you never quite know. I mean, I know in general it's garbage in, garbage out, but things can turn corners. You know, a charred oak barrel is a magical place for whiskey. So. And that's what you want to see the distilleries be able to have that flexibility. Like, hey, we don't think it's ready. We're going to let it age a little bit longer. And that's why I love seeing that at times, even if it's, you know, even if it means a source product for the first few years, I'd rather see them wait and put out something that's ready to go.
Yeah, don't rush it.
And that reminds me too, like when I was up at Driftless, I tried a couple barrels and they're like, you know, a couple years ago we considered doing the rock and rye thing, like, and then this other company came out with it, which we all know now is Stolen. You know, they did their rock and rye, or the Hochstadters. There we go. You know, they did theirs, and they're like, honestly, like we thought everyone did a terrible job, so why would we waste that? And they're like, so we just let it age for a couple more years, and it came out great. Now we're gonna sell it. It's their 51 rye. Like our rye is great. Like it's really good. Like we're glad we didn't tinker with it. You know, like,
we're glad we just let it sit there and
glad you let that age for a while.
Yeah, that 51 rye is really good. Somebody sent me a sample of that, and I was really impressed.
So Hokie asked the question earlier that kind of ties it to what we're talking about now. I mean, we dug into the, you know, what makes the craft world a little better now than it was even 5 years ago. Talked a little bit about the experimentation, but now let's talk a little bit about what makes it good, or what are the indicators or markers in the whiskey as it's aging, if there are any, that let us know this is going to be a good product. Like, what is it that defines the promise in there? Is it something that we can always pick out in a tasting? Is it something that the distiller knows ahead of time? Or is it just more of a gamble than we're, you know, willing to admit to ourselves sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, you know, for me, you want to see kind of that base layer of, hey, I'm not getting like super green oak notes. I'm not getting like something really off balance or funky. There's good layers of, you know, the standard bourbon notes like caramel, vanilla, little black pepper, that kind of things. So it's kind of like you have this pyramid, and that base layer of what we think a bourbon should taste like is there. You know, you hit the major points, and then after that, it's like what makes it unique. You know, is what are those notes that I'm going to remember it by 6 months from now whenever I'm describing it to a friend. You know, you think about us talking about that Pursuit 18, we all throw out, you know, flavor notes right away, and it may be different in each of our heads, but we all know exactly what we're talking about. So something like that, like, you know, it's got a good base, but also is unique and something I can remember and recall even when I'm tasting something different, you know, 6, 8, 10 months from now. So that's what I'm typically looking for.
I like that. I'm kind of the same with it too, where as long as, I mean, I could tolerate having a bourbon that tastes like it's a little young, even a little grainy. But when you start having those, like if there's a weird acetone note or just like anything in there that sort of indicates a true flaw, whether it's in the distillation or in the barrels they're using, if there's just something in there that jumps out at you as, hey, like this flat out doesn't taste good,
Yeah.
then that's usually kind of what it is that holds me back and makes me very reticent to circle back to that brand and be like, you know what? It's been 2 years. Let me try it again. I mean, when there's things along the way where I did this with Peerless. I tried their stuff at 2 years. I said, you know what? This is good. I think it's a little pricey for what it is, but I do like it. I think it's an all right, all right product as it's aging just a bit. Is this going to get better? We'll try it. And then at 4 years, you know what? It's made some steps. It is getting better. I do like where they're going with it. And that's one that I'll continually buy as it gets older because it's interesting to watch that evolution.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Peerless.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say Peerless is a great example of that, actually.
When they're doing something, and I mean, I scream about this almost weekly at this point, but like Peerless also lets you buy 200 milliliters every year until you're convinced it's good enough to buy a whole bottle. And like,
give us 200 ml.
I would kill for that. And we're seeing it. I mean, in Mezcal, it's coming out. Everyone is flasking everything, which I think is fucking coolest. And we're seeing a lot in bourbon too. So like, I should knock that, or at least like 375s. Like there are more and more, half bottle sizes coming out, but like, I would buy a half bottle or a 200 ml from so many more places that I don't even trust. I'm just like, this would suck, but I'll try it this year and I'll try it the next year. And then in maybe 4 years, I think it's amazing. And I'll just buy a full bottle. And I think that, I hope that more places do it because I think Peerless is okay. And they're certainly making huge strides every year, but like, I'll happily buy into it and give it a shot every year, where other places I might give it 3 or 4 years. Like, or anything.
Yeah, you spread out the same amount of dollars spent, but you just have to do it over a longer time to feel like you're not getting abused.
Yeah, I mean, but and like we all know about Peerless pricing, and it was sky high to begin with, and it's still pretty high now. But I mean, a 200 milliliter for $20 or $30, I'm a pretty impulsive guy. I'll buy that. all the time.
It's just like has to be under that certain price range. You don't care what it is. Like, am I getting 50 mLs or 200 mLs? Well, it's under $30, so I'll try it.
Yeah. Can't get hurt under $30.
Yeah.
The worst thing is when you spend $100 and you're like, this sucks, and it's gonna haunt me for the rest of my life because I'm not gonna drink it. And it's COVID. I don't have enough guests to pawn this off on. Like,
right.
There's 700 milliliters of the 750 milliliter bottle that are just gonna look at me all day, and I'm like, oh. Like,
and running short on Boston Rounds to pack it up and send 2 ounces to every idiot So
yeah. I mean,
put it in as many blind tastings as possible just to test people out.
It's crazy. I mean, and I'll let you guys speak to Oak Bottle's point too, but I think high proof is better. High proof carries more flavor, which is typically what we're looking for. I think you find a lot of acrid notes are more evident the lower proof you get, which is why craft whiskey originally was very suspect. Everything was 40% or 43% because you needed to make those margins. You needed to bleed less to the taxman. And I think that's why like places like Driftless that were like, we're just going to do it all cast strength. Like we may not be perfect, but we're going to have a ton of flavor, and 90% of it's going to be good flavor, and it's going to get better every year. But I think when you take profiles that aren't fully developed and then dilute them is when you really start to see those notes spread out. Yeah. And I don't know if you agree or disagree, Blake.
That's a good lead in.
I'd say it's kind of a twofold question. One, with craft distilling, you have naturally lower proofs in general, just because their barrel entry proof is much lower. For the most part, you've got a lot of distilleries going in the barrel at 100 proof, 105 proof, 110 proof, as opposed to the 125 in a majority, unless you're like Wilderness Trail or some of the other big craft distillers. You don't have the 9-story warehouses which produce that 140 proof, top floor that's just getting beat with heat for a long time. So you don't have as much high proof as we think of it, in the Elijah Craig barrel proofs, the Stags, the Maker's Cast strength to an extent, not quite as much. So I think proof definitely plays a role. I personally just like barrel proof because it's the purest form. You get to taste it, what it's like, but adding a splash of water really opens things up and helps you change the chemical balance, whatever it is. There's a whole science to it. So I'd say proof definitely affects it, and you can taste that, and you can cover things up by proofing and filtering and all of that. but in general, you're going to have a lower proof in craft just because of their production process. So I don't know if I'd say it's riskier to be at a higher proof or not. I guess it's kind of hard to say. I think kind of what Jay said about, when you proof it down, you kind of spread those flaws out in the whiskey a little bit. I think that is true. So maybe it's not as risky to put it at 130 proof because the alcohol is going to hit you and cover up a lot of those flaws. So yeah, it's almost a case by case basis. I feel like I'm a politician right now answering that question, but
well, I'll follow it up.
It really almost is. Yeah, go ahead, John.
So, looking at it from the craft perspective, the double-edged sword definitely comes into play because you're talking about cost, and how much alcohol goes into that barrel and how much comes out, and how many you could put into how many number of bottles, how many 9-liter cases can you move. Those numbers end up mattering a lot. And in some cases, I think it matters more than the quality of the product. And so in that case, yes, riskier to go at a high proof because you're probably going to be hurting your margin. In terms of flavor profile, if you listen to Old Forester and Jackie and some of the folks there, they do all of their tastings very frequently, like almost daily, proofed down to 40. Because with that much water in the product, any flaw is going to show.
Yeah.
So strictly from a flavor perspective, going to a lower proof, you really need to have something that's going to hold up to all of the water. I mean, if you think about the small amount of water, like a gallon of water, what that changes in an entire batch of whiskey is like a single proof point. So you really need to be adding an absolute ton of water to get these things down to 40% ABV. So when they're testing these things in their lab at 40 proof, 20% ABV, they're finding the flaws there, and they're able to correctly proof their spirits that way and say, this performs great at 90, but when you get below 90, this, slight flaw is going to stick out, and we don't want to have that in our product because then it's going to taste like shit and people aren't going to want it. So in a larger scale, it's risky to go lower proof, depending on your process. If you're able to accurately proof it to the right spot and you're not just saying this is as low as we can go dollar-wise or as high as we can go dollar-wise, it's going to give you a little bit of a different result.
That's a really good point. And I think that points to, in the Scotch whiskey industry, they're doing it at like 20%, 23%, 26%. And that's what the master blenders are working with. Like they're blending, million-liter batches of Johnny Walker and stuff like that. And they're using crazy low ABVs to do crazy big batches and stuff because, at that, and I think too, like most like craft places assume if they're releasing something at 40, like you're probably just going to mix this and then it doesn't matter if there's flaws, right? Because Coke covers a multitude of sins. But I think that's a great point that, a lot of these places are testing much lower ABV because you can get kind of the more full spread of notes, whether they're good or bad. And the higher ABV you get, things get more concentrated and perhaps a little bit harder to discern individually, which is probably for the better.
Coke covers a multituit of sins may be the best quote of the night.
I was typing that on the side to save it.
That's
the indie band of the night.
That's gonna be.
I was saving that. Don't worry, we won't lose that. That's a joke.
Okay, good.
That's gotta stick around. But no, it is true. And I mean, I think, how many times have you heard, I want a cask strength so I can really taste it? Right. And that's actually not necessarily true. I know Jackie Zykan gave like a full-on scientific way of why that is not true. But it is interesting to see where people think they're tasting like the unadulterated, unfiltered, but really you're covering a lot up with that.
Certainly.
And so I don't know how that affects the end consumer because I think we all still reach for cask strength when we can. But that makes it fun because we can add a little bit of water on our own and let it open up and do that. So it's almost like our own experimenting.
Sure.
And what I like about cask strength is that you can't undilute it. So like if I wanted a cask strength, like I don't sit around and drink cast strength stuff like night after night after night. Like that gets kind of exhausting and it'll totally wear out your palate. But like it's nice to compare some stuff and you know, and know that like, you know, I can add as much water as I want and I can get filtered water and see how it sits at these different proofs, which is I think where the value really is. And I think maybe some people just see the value in cast strength being that, you know, I get more booze for the dollar, which is totally valid as well. But it's fun to do your own experimenting and blending and stuff like that, which has been a big hobby of mine. And, you know, once the water's in there, you can't take it out.
Yeah, that is the true part. Yeah, so just
important Q&A coming through
in the background.
He's like, "Yo,
old Ellie,
Doggo's creeping on you, man."
Yeah, she got real scared. We had some thunder earlier. I think now she's
no.
out. So no, we'll get to Ellie in a little bit. That is the oldest member of the Reber family. We've had her we kept her like 6 months after we got married. So
oh damn.
Yeah, she's like I think 11 at the time. And at the time I told my wife, I'm like, I don't want a dog that's like super hyper and like sheds a lot. We got a German short-haired pointer, and if you know anything about GSPs,
I do.
It is the exact opposite of what I described. Like I would take her on 9-mile runs, and we'd get home, and she'd bring the tennis ball over for me to throw it. I'm like, I'm about to pass out. Like, stop.
We adopted a heeler mutt last year. And for like the first year we had her, you know, we do 3 miles in the morning and 5 miles after dinner, and we get home and she'd be like, play? And we'd be like,
yeah.
Like, I'm tired.
There's no off button.
Tired. Why aren't you tired?
Yeah. The only thing that has finally slowed her down was one, being 11 years old, and then 4 kids who were like constantly just running and chasing.
Throw the ball, pull on your ears, hang out.
She is a good dog. The most gun-shy bird dog you've ever met in your entire life, but that's a whole other subject.
Oh yeah, you can fix that if you need to.
I think we'll have to pitch it to you. Maybe we'll get Ellie involved. I think in 2021, aficionados, all of our barrel picks are going to feature everyone's dogs.
Oh man, I actually don't tell me that, because I will send you 25 pictures of my dog with like a bourbon glass in front of it. And
I like where this is going already.
Some really good ones.
Yeah. I mean, we got like 10 dogs that everyone's just like, everyone's super hype on, and like Hoki's in the chat, like his dog Nella is a total ham, and we're like, why are we doing picks with just names? Like we should throw everyone's dogs.
Yeah, we should. Why not? Well, that's I feel like, you know, you could do like the Pinhook has the horses. You could do that, but with people's dogs, get it like you know, somehow sketched out. That would be
that'll be way less embarrassing than the barrel pick photos I do of Kenny too, for all the
I was gonna say Kenny would appreciate, you know, pictures of him in pleated khaki pants not showing up. So
yeah, I mean, Kenny Ryan got a dog. We'll get that in there. I thought it'd be like the funniest thing. So
this will work out fine.
We'll make it come to life.
Awesome.
Hair of the dogs. That's what you need to call this.
Holy shit!
It could be the Hair of the Dog series. I stole that from a friend of mine who in the chat.
Like it.
So I feel like that would be good.
That's funny too. Now that you mentioned Hair of the Dog, because on Saturday I golfed with some friends. We did like a socially distant golf thing, and we all had different carts and stuff. But I was like super hungover the next day, and I never get hungover. And I was like, well, you know, I guess we drank a bunch of beer for the first time in a long time. And I was like taking a picture of like Hair of the Dog with the beer in my hand, and then my dog was behind it, like give me some of this beer. And I was like, all right, there's the dog, there's the Hair of the Dog. Like I guess we got everything we need, you know.
That works out great.
It's a good picture setup. Yeah. That's funny.
Well, I think we should probably start dialing this thing back in here so we don't make everybody freak out and get too much dog hair in their drinks or whatever it is that you guys are trying to do. So, Blake, I want to thank you, man, for coming in. This has been really fun. It was really cool to dig in a little bit deeper from your Whiskey from Home segment there on why craft whiskey doesn't suck, or whatever it was titled. Something like that. Something probably less vulgar.
I think Kenny actually made the series Why Blake Sucks, but Craft Whiskey Does Not. I think that was the official.
We'll make sure to double check that and verify it for you.
We'll get that in the show notes.
We'll trust but verify, yeah.
Exactly. So, Blake, if you just want to let everybody know, even though half the people in here are from your community already, if you just want to let them know what's going on, where they can find you, when to not try to buy that upcoming barrel pick that Blake or that Jake and I need to get all of it.
Yeah, for sure. No, you know, once again, thanks again for having me on. This has been a lot of fun, and there's nothing better than sitting and talking whiskey with guys who appreciate it and kind of enjoy nerding out a little bit. So you can find me at bourbonr.com. That's BOURBONR. That's on all the Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, the blog, which is desperately in need of some content, and then as well as seelbachs.com, SEELBACHS. Like we mentioned, we do have we've got, I don't want to tease it out too much. Like I said, I don't want to oversell things, but we got a pretty big week, couple of weeks coming up. We've got the McKinsey rye pick on Friday. We've got 3 Bull Run barrels landing.
Hell yeah!
How do we just talk about that now?
Yeah, mid next week. So we've got a 13-year. I think
what finish?
It's Hungarian oak American whiskey, a 13-year port finished American whiskey, and then a 7-year rye finished in tequila barrels. And I promise you, it is the craziest thing. Like the mash bill was super weird. It was like 65% rye, 35% malt, and then they finished it for, I think it was 7 or 8 months in I forget the tequila barrel, but it's like a chocolate like malt ball, like chocolate malt milkshake, and I don't even know where these notes are coming from.
Oh
but
shit, that's the type of weird I like.
Week, and yeah, so big few weeks, and yeah, we'll slip a McKinsey password in the chat here. So, but no, thanks for having me. I didn't mean to have like the longest outro of all time, but that's
Wi-Fi didn't break up. We'll take it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, if you're dropping Bull Run, you can just talk all fucking night. Like, that's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's been great to have you. I'll let John close this out for the night, but I'm Jay from Take That Review, T8KE.review. You can find me on Instagram. My website, which is, I'm back from vacation, so you can start to see reviews every day. Join John and I on Thursday if you want to watch us pick the Knob Creek single barrel for our bourbon. Next week, Tuesday, Thursday, we'll be streaming. Thursday, we'll be picking a Smooth Ambler as well, 2 barrels. And then the week after that, we'll be picking Elijah Craig. So we got a lot of shit to pick. All of it's awesome. I'm super pumped about it. If you have questions, finally grab me. But yeah, Blake, it's been great to see you. It's been a while since we've been on cam together, so it's been a lot of fun. And John, why don't you take us home?
Absolutely, fellas. Thanks again, everybody. Everybody in the chat that was chiming in. We had a lot of great questions tonight. That was really fun.
Hell yeah.
I'd like to be able to tie everything together with those. I'm John. You can find me on TheBourbonFinder.com or at TheBourbonFinder on Instagram. We're doing all this through the Whiskey Net. So we're trying to connect the whiskey world together, connecting everybody's community to one, making one big, happy whiskey family. And like Jay said, we're doing this on Tuesdays. We're going to be evidently cracking into barrels on Thursdays from now on for the foreseeable future anyhow. So
sorry,
hey, what the hell, let's have fun, hang out, drink whiskey. And I think if I'm gonna have any of the buttons I want here, we're gonna go ahead and say goodbye. Hey, look,
I've always been drinking a little bit when one eye closes to like zoom in on, hey, what am I trying to
what's going on here? I had it on chat. I was reading instead of pressing the buttons.
I've done that, typing out some Instagram posts before. I'm like, okay, what am I?
I think that's the only way Instagram works. You can only use one eye to.
So it's like, what was the movie The Intern where they're like, oh, you can't text when you're drunk. Instagram actually only works when you're drunk.
That's exactly right. That's the only way you can use that shit.
Tipsy. Okay, you can now post.
You have now passed age verification.
Yeah.
Breathe into your phone one more time, please.
That's funny.
All right, guys. Cheers.
See you, everyone.